English snow was falling that night. Sharp, cutting cold, -20 Fahrenheit. My hands stiff, my breath freezing in the air. Inside, the teepee smoke curled up the chimney, firewood cracked and hissed. And I wondered, could this old cone of poles and hides really outdo a modern furnace? Could it keep a man warm when the prairie winds screamed like wolves? I tested it. I measured it. And what I found surprised me. People often say teepees are just romantic, pretty for postcards, camp gimmicks. But the truth, there's science behind the warmth. There's culture carved in every stitch. Tonight, brothers, I'll share with you 7 heating hacks tested at -20 that just might beat the furnace in your house. Stay with me. The payoff is real. That night, as the fire whispered low and the wind clawed at the canvas, I thought about the people who built these shelters long before me. The Plains tribes of North America, families who lived through winters without wires, without furnaces, without backup power. The tipi wasn't decoration, it was survival. A cone of poles, hides wrapped tight, smoke hole open to the stars. Built to shed the wind, built to carry the smoke away. Built to keep the heart of the fire alive through nights colder than steel. And it wasn't alone. The Mongols had the yurt, the Sami of the far north, their lavu. In Russia, the old chum. Different land, same principle, beat the cold, tame the smoke, live another season. That's why I call the teepee a natural furnace. Tested for centuries, proven by people who didn't have the luxury to be wrong. And tonight, we'll see how it stacks up against the machine in your basement. That night, the wind howled like it wanted to tear the canvas right off the poles. I pulled an extra hide over the teepee, 2 layers instead of 1. Then I lit the fire and waited. Inside, I could feel the difference almost at once. My breath no longer smoked as heavy. My hands thawed out. When I checked the thermometer, the numbers told the story plain: 15 to 20 degrees warmer inside than out. That's the difference between numb fingers and sleeping without fear. Cultures knew this long before me. The Sami in the far north stitched reindeer hides 1 layer over another. In Japan, families stacked futons and closed sliding shoji doors to trap warmth. Always the same principle trap. The heat slow, the escape, survive the night. But here's the warning, brothers. Don't use nylon or thin plastic tarps. They'll burn faster than you can shout. Fire doesn't forgive. Use canvas, wool, or hides materials that breathe, and don't turn your shelter into a tinderbox. For me, that second skin of fabric was like adding bricks to a house wall. Simple, reliable, and it meant waking up warm enough to smile even when the prairie outside was locked in steel-cold darkness. That night, -20, the teepee groaned under the wind and smoke kept swirling back into my eyes. My throat stung. My jacket smelled like an old chimney. So I tried something the elders once taught: dig the fire down. I carved out a shallow pit in the frozen ground, just a foot deep. Dropped the fire lower than the floor, and almost at once the smoke rose smoother, straighter. It funneled up through the top vent instead of choking me out. When I checked the thermometer, the air at chest level was cleaner and warmer, 10 degrees better than before. A small change, but one that meant I could actually sleep instead of coughing through the night. The science backs it. In the 1970s, researchers studied airflow in traditional tipis. They found that a lowered hearth changes circulation, cool air sinks, smoke lifts, fire breathes steady. Other cultures solved it too. The Eskimo carved smoke holes in their igloos, letting foul air slip out without losing all the warmth. Different materials, same survival math. So here's the payoff. A hole in the floor may not look like much, but it's the difference between choking on your own fire and waking to a clear sky of stars above the teepee. Frost was crawling up the canvas silver in the firelight. I knew the flames alone wouldn't last till dawn, so I ringed the fire with heavy stones, let them soak the heat until they hissed and glowed faint red. Hours later, when the fire sank low, those stones still breathed warmth. 6, even 8 hours. I laid my bedding close, and the earth itself seemed to whisper heat back into my bones. That slow release was the difference between waking stiff and aching, or waking rested. But listen close, never use river stones. They hide water inside. Heat them too fast and they'll crack, even explode. I once had one-burst sparks flying into my coffee pot. Not a joke at 20 below. Choose dry granite basalt or old quarry rockstone that's been baked by time, not soaked by rivers. Other people's had their own way. The Slavs built massive pechka stoves of brick radiating warmth till morning. In Japan, families huddled under the kotatsu charcoal beneath clay and stones above, keeping the chill at bay. Different lands, same principle, trap fire, release it slow. For me, those stones stretched a single blaze into an all-night companion, and that meant waking warm long after the flames had died. The wind that night was the real enemy, not the cold alone, but the endless push of air slicing through the canvas. So I cut spruce boughs, stacked them outside the tipi, and shaped a rough wall. Snow drifted against it, sealing the cracks. Inside, I felt the difference. My fire burned steadier. The draft eased. When I checked the numbers, the chill dropped nearly 40%. That's not just theory. That's the line between freezing hands and hands steady enough to tie cord or hold a cup of coffee. Cultures across the north knew this trick. The Sami, high above the Arctic Circle, built snow walls around their lavu, simple barriers against a brutal wind. It didn't matter if it was reindeer hide or pine poles without a shield. Even the best tent bleeds heat. For me, the wall was quick work, 15 minutes with an axe and a shovel. Yet it turned a leaky shelter into something solid, a little fortress of warmth in the storm. So here's your takeaway, brothers. Don't fight the cold head on. Block the wind. Even a thin wall outside means the fire lasts longer, the smoke rises cleaner, and your bones rest easier till morning. The fire was burning strong, but I could still feel the cold gnawing at my back. That's when I hung a foil blanket on the wall opposite the flames. Sometimes I've used heavy hides, sometimes just a simple reflective sheet. And the change was immediate. The heat didn't vanish into the canvas anymore. It bounced back, infrared rolling across the teepee like a second fire. My thermometer climbed another 10 degrees. My skin felt the warmth on both sides like I was sitting between two hearths. People think those foil blankets are only for emergencies, something you toss in a first aid kit and forget. But here's the myth bust in a tipi. They double the fire's power. Not magic, just physics. Cultures around the world found their own mirrors for fire. In the far north, hides stretched tight, reflected heat back toward the sleepers. In Japan, the paper walls of the shoji trapped warmth and bounced the glow of charcoal. Always the same wisdom, don't waste the fire you've worked so hard to build. For me, the payoff was clear. One thin sheet turned the tipi into a furnace. My back stopped aching. The air grew steady cozy. And outside, the wind still howled, but inside, I sat grinning warm enough to take off my gloves. The ground steals heat faster than the wind. I learned that the hard way, lying on bare snow, feeling the warmth drain from my body into the frozen earth. So the next night, I laid down spruce boughs, then a layer of straw. On top of that, hides, a thick carpet between me and the ice. The change was real. My thermometer showed the floor sitting 10, even 15 degrees warmer than the snow just outside the door. Enough to keep my back from aching, enough to keep my breath steady through the long night. Cultures everywhere knew this truth. The Vikings built raised platforms inside their longhouses, lifting themselves off the cold stone floors. In the North Woods, trappers spread evergreen branches beneath their bedrolls. Always the same lesson, don't let the earth rob you blind. And it isn't just comfort. A warm floor means deeper sleep, faster recovery, more energy for the morning. Out here, that can be the difference between making fire again or fumbling with numb fingers till the sun comes up. So, here's the payoff. Build a floor, even a rough one. Because sometimes the fight for warmth isn't above you, it's right below your bones. The fire was good, the heat steady. But then my head felt heavy and the smoke began to curl low inside the teepee. That's when I remembered the old trick, adjust the top flaps. The butterfly wings of the teepee. I pulled the ropes, shifted the canvas. The draft changed. Smoke lifted clean, drawn out through the peak. And the air I breathed grew lighter, fresher. My thermometer still showed 55 inside, but the real victory was invisible. No carbon monoxide building, no poison lingering. Science explains it plain. Cold air sinks, hot gases rise. Carbon monoxide lighter than freezing air escapes when the vent is open. No vent, and that invisible killer stays with you. A fire that saves you can also take you if you forget the flap. Other cultures found their own ways. In Japan, the eerie hearth sat at the center of the house, its smoke slipping out through the roof. Families stayed warm, but the draft always carried danger away. Same wisdom, different roof. For me, the payoff was peace of mind. I could close my eyes knowing the air was safe, my lungs clear, my family protected. Because brother's warmth means nothing if the breath inside your chest is poisoned. The wind howled outside -20, sharp enough to freeze steel. Inside my teepee, the fire glowed steady. I checked the thermometer one last time. 55 degrees. Warm enough to take off my gloves. Warm enough to sip coffee without shaking. Now think about that. A simple cone of poles canvas hides warming a man to 55 while the world outside tried to kill him. And I'll say it plain, that's as good as sometimes better than the furnace humming in your basement. Because when the power cuts out, that furnace is dead weight. The tipi, still alive, still working. People laugh, call it romantic camping. They hang pictures of tipis on calendars and forget. But here's the myth bust, this isn't nostalgia. This is survival technology. Tested by families who had no backup plan, refined by cultures that lived or froze by its design. You can see echoes everywhere. The Sami snow walls, the Slav pechka, the Japanese irori. Different roofs, different walls, but always the same wisdom. Hold the heat, breathe safe, last the night. For me, that was the real payoff. Not just numbers on a dial, but the feeling that this ancient shelter could still carry me through the cold. A furnace of canvas and wood, proven in fire, proven in frost. The wind still howled outside, but inside my tipi, the fire whispered steady safe. 55 degrees against 20 below. Enough proof for me. A tipi isn't just canvas and poles. It's a furnace carved by history. Safe if you mind the flaps, smart if you watch the stones, and cheaper than any electric bill when the grid goes dark. It keeps you warm. And it ties you back to the wisdom of people who faced winters long before us. Brothers, this is more than camping. It's survival, it's connection, and it's a reminder that the old ways still work when modern ones fail. But here's the question I'll leave hanging: the tipi works. But how does it compare to the yurt in a full blizzard? Which one holds heat longer? Which one bleeds less to the storm? That's the test for next time. So if you want more winter survival tricks, ways to keep the family safe without ever flipping a switch, stick around. Subscribe, because the cold isn't going away, but neither is our fire.